The Hungarian-Austrian Compromise in 1867 created the Austro-Hungarian Empire and started a half-a-century-long war-free period with relatively peaceful domestic policy. The era was marked by spectacular economic progress and explosive growth of cities. However, new social problems arose. More than a decade after the 1848-49 Revolution and War of Independence, and the introduction of the Austrian neo-absolutist system, the issue of the October Diplom in the autumn of 1860 was a non-negligible element of the Hungarian constitutional history. Decades of stagnation in domestic policy caused power loss. Failures in diplomacy threatened the existence of the empire. Therefore, it was inevitable for Emperor Franz Joseph, who was the monarch since 1848, to manage a cautious rapprochement with Hungarians. However, the October Diplom and the February Patent were issued to solve public law grievances, but they proved to be unacceptably constraining for the Hungarian party as part of the United Empire. At first, the Hungarians resisted with various methods: petitions, passive resistance. Later, the negotiations continued with expressions of trust until a law was passed known as the Article of Compromise in everyday language. Austria and Hungary began to cooperate in a common state conglomerate. Their domestic policies were independent from each other, except for the war and foreign affairs, which were covered by common funds. The monarch was crowned in Hungary as well. The Hungarian point of view was worked out by the management of Ferenc Deák, the former Minister of Justice of the Batthyány government. Deák insisted on keeping the constitutional privileges of the country. However, in his opinion, its maintenance and development could be ensured only by cooperating with the Habsburg state. In 1865, to express the Hungarians' intention of détente, Deák's famous Easter article opened a new chapter in the volatile Austrian-Hungarian relationship. Deák, the wise man of the nation, was led by practicality and feasibility when he created the institutions of national administration and common cases through legislature. He did not consider this system definitive, but rather a sure foundation which enabled further development, material and spiritual prosperity of the country. Deák's closest colleagues in the elaboration of law articles about the compromise was Count Gyula Andrássy. Andrássy was the first Hungarian prime minister in the dualistic period. As an officer of the Honvéd army and diplomat, he also took part in the War of Independence, so he was sentenced to death in absentia. He returned to Hungary in 1857 and went into politics. The Pretty Hangman, as he was also known, was considered for prime minister by Deák Ferenc in 1867. However, he was appointed Minister of Common Foreign Affairs by the monarch in 1869. The internationally renowned outstanding statesman held office for 10 years, enhancing the reputation of his country. In the 1860s, one more important figure appeared in the history of Hungary: Queen Elizabeth. The icy atmosphere of the Viennese court, the tyranny of her mother-in-law, the absence of her children, and the death of her daughter Sophie brought Elizabeth closer to the equally ill-fated Hungarians. Due to her illness and sadness, she frequently traveled to Hungary. At that time, she had just returned from her foreign medical treatment and reclaimed management of family affairs. The queen, who grew up in a more open-minded milieu than the monarch, found kinship with the Hungarians. She supported the compromise, built connections. She was a friend of Ferenc Deák until his death in 1876. She even paid her last respects to Deák. At that time, the prime minister was Kálmán Tisza, who opposed the compromise earlier. Even in 1868, in his well-known Points of Bihar, he wanted an independent Hungarian economy and army. However, in 1875, he gave up these views and, cooperating with his exceptional ministers to ensure the development of the administration system, civic jurisdiction, transport, education and economy for the following 15 years. His fall was caused by the defense debate in Parliament in 1890. The sensitive and symbolic issue of military conscription sparked patriotic feelings in the country, which already gave up national independence for the Compromise of 1867. However, this was not the only warning sign of problems with the dualistic state. Other fundamental issues arose. Government policy did not consider nationalities and ethnic groups and left some institutions of feudalism intact. Minority problems and issues of Hungarian peasantry and working classes without parliamentary representation and the economic hindrance of poor people destroyed the 50-year-old political system, which could not resist the force of the upcoming new age in 1918.